Yeah.
Oh my God, if you don't want to be gay, then don't have gay sex. Like, it's fine. Like, you'll be, like, you know, go and live your life. Like, whatever. So imagine being a white, middle-class, heterosexual male. If you wake up in the morning in Australia, you open your eyes and your feet hit the ground and you have no consciousness of your identity. You don't think about the fact that I'm a black person, I'm a brown person, and that's the first thing that people can see when I walk through a door. You don't think about like the way that you have to temper your tone in spaces because you're a queer person. I like to win. I really enjoy strength training. I fucking hate cardio.
Oh, me too.
Can't stand it. It's such a stupid thing to do. For me, at this point, I've lost 37 kilos now.
Wow. That's incredible. That's
thank
massive.
you.
Today's guest is the definition of multi-hyphenate, but do not let the titles distract you from the depth.
Fuzz Ali is a TV personality, creative director, and also a podcast host.
Podcast host like us.
But more than that, he's also a powerful communicator. He has made it his mission to challenge comfort zones.
Born in Australia, raised in Fiji, and now calling Sydney home, Fuzz has carved out a space where queer, BIPOC, and other unrepresented voices are not just welcomed. They're amplified. You might recognise him from My Kitchen Rules, his show Life with Fuzz, and other events across Australia that he has hosted.
He's not here to play it safe. He's here to speak honestly about identity, belonging, advocacy, and also visibility, which also makes a lot of people squirm.
Yes, definitely. Let's go there. Fuzz Ali, welcome to No Business Being a Castano.
Welcome, Fuzz Ali, man.
You like to seek out uncomfortable conversations, uncomfortable situations. You put yourself through that. Why? Like, this podcast is all about that. So why?
I think that from a fairly young age, I was very aware of the fact that life is unpredictable. My mother's favorite brother passed away when he was 35.
I'm sorry.
And she absolutely adored her. She has 13 siblings. So, like, you know, there's still a lot of them left.
Yeah.
But the point is that, like, that was her favorite because everybody has a favorite. And I think that beyond that, what ended up happening was that I saw, as I got older and had more consciousness in the world, that a lot of the men in my family, in particular, my uncles, also passed away fairly young. It made me very aware of death. I think it might also, I know this is like a really weird place to start for a podcast, but like.
No, we like to start.
We like to go deep.
Yeah, we like to go deep real quick.
But here we are, we're talking about death.
We are.
And I think that what also informed my understanding of death is the fact that my mother's father, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, who I loved very, very much, was also very aware of this idea of death. He was Muslim, and he basically, you know, my entire childhood, very, very early on, it was sort of, you know, every day think about death once, right? And I know that sounds morbid, but it's actually not. In that you acknowledge from a young age, or I acknowledge from a young age, that my life was not, it wasn't to infinity. That there was a finite amount of time that I would have, and also that I had no control over how much time I would have. So I decided, therefore, very early on that I would die young.
Yes, okay.
And it's like the most random thing in the world. But I honestly, like, at various points in my life, have decided the year and the age that I would die.
Wow.
And so, you know, silly ages. Like, I remember the first time I was like, I'll die when I'm 30. And then I didn't. And then
I
decided,
I'm still here.
I'm still here. And despite all the awful things that I put myself through in my health. And then I decided 35, 35 is a good number. And then I got to the age of 35. I was like, oh, fuck, I'm going to die. Am I allowed to swear on the podcast?
Of course.
Yeah, you're allowed to man.
Do what you want.
And then I got to 35. I was like, I'm going to die. This is it, And then I didn't die.
Yeah.
And then now I'm 38. And now I've set my sights a little bit further. So now I'm saying 70. So I don't know, like.
That's a good number.
Yeah.
I think
solid.
that's a good number.
Yeah.
I think it's like the idea of a promise, right? So like you, which is, the promise is biblical. It's like, 3 score plus 10. So it's 70. So I was like, okay, cool. So if I do 70 years, then I would have lived a full human life and I would have done all the things. But because I've been so conscious of the idea of dying, I don't say no to things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, no, I was
sorry,
going to say, have you ever come close to dying? Like, I know for me, I remember one time I was swimming and like I nearly drowned twice. So now whenever I get in the water, I'm like, I'm not the best
Have
swimmer and
you
it scares me.
learned
Like,
to swim
I'm
yet?
a good swimmer. I'm
Okay.
a good swimmer. Come on, eh? Seriously, downplay me all the time. I'm actually decent. I can survive in the water, but like I've come close to dying. Have you come close at any time? No?
You know what? Strangely enough,
Yes.
no.
Oh, yeah.
despite the fact that I've been like very conscious of it, I've never actually come. I mean, like, once I was maybe almost hit by a car or something, but like genuinely, no. I mean,
let's knock wood now. Let's knock some wood now.
Yeah.
We don't touch wood. Let's touch wood.
Touch
Yes,
some
because we
wood.
don't want
Yes.
any of that to happen after this. All right.
maybe being aware of it, pushes it further away from me. I'm not sure what it is, but
Well, you're like, it was 30, then 35, then 70. That's a massive jump in between that. Why did you push it out so far?
I think that initially, 35, I think, had a lot to do with my mother's brother who passed away. She subsequently, she had six brothers. Of the six brothers, 4 have passed away. And so I think it was that. But then I suppose I have a very strong sense of spirituality, which is personal to me. And I said to you before, in understanding biblically what life was supposed to look like, that became my benchmark. So I was like, well, if God promises me 70 years, then that's what I get. Mm-hmm. And any less than that, then I really fucked it up. And any more than that is a wonderful blessing.
A blessing. Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess I can relate to that because my dad had me quite later in his life. So before me, he had open heart surgery. So he was very health conscious for all of my life. And growing up, it was always like, he would make me very aware that at any moment, potentially, he wouldn't be there. And it was always a conversation. So I feel like for me, that was very apparent in my life as well. Death was a thing that could happen at any time. And my parents, I'm an only child, so I was like very...
So am I.
Oh, really? I was wrapped sort of in cotton wool, wouldn't you say? A little bit. So whenever I'd do something, go out, like even out with my friends, you'd be like, be careful. And I'm like, you know what? If this is my time, then this is my time. Like I'd always say that to my parents because it's just, you don't know. Like you don't know when you're going to lose it or lose this life. But yeah, death to me was always very apparent. Yeah.
It's whenever I hear the word death, I don't know, I just kind of get the chill and I go and like my heart just kind of sinks in. I don't know, I get that feeling, that cold feeling whenever I talk about that type of stuff.
Yeah,
so
well, it's not a nice thing
change
to
it up,
talk
I reckon.
about.
Let's change it up.
Let's change it up.
I'm not talking about like an Egyptian like obsession with death, like building pyramids for the after, but like like a healthy.
But so obviously I've seen the feed. Your fashion's amazing. The cooking. Tell us something that's not on that doesn't make the feed. Like your Instagram. I've seen it. I was going through it, and all your fashion's amazing. Your food, all your cooking stuff. What doesn't make the feed? Or do you put your whole life on Instagram?
That's a really good question. I think that the things that make the feed really whatever's important to me at the time. So I suppose my consciousness is expressed through the feed. In my previous time before I moved back to Australia. Because I've lived between Australia and Fiji my entire life, but I worked in the media, so I was a television host, and there was this sort of like this third space of television, right? So like you sort of there's a separation between you and audience, and it was through that I developed an appreciation for what social media could do, because you could say things and do things social media that were a lot more meaningful and impactful in terms of like who you are and the space you occupy in the world. So I suppose the thing that makes the feed, even if it is, clothes, and there's much less fashion on there now than there has been in the past, or it's food, which I'm really enjoying at the moment, or the idea of wellness, which is a whole other thing. But those are sort of like values. I guess the things that don't make the feed are just the things, just like the things of life, just I don't know, the way that you like I don't do like 5 billion stories a day or anything because I can't do it, but just enjoying my time with Eli, for example, my partner, or my dogs make the feed because everybody loves them for whatever reason.
Everyone loves dogs.
Everyone loves dogs.
And if you don't.
And if you don't,
that's weird.
I always say that.
Me too.
Every time my dogs don't like somebody, I'm like, there's, except one of them psycho, but the other one, like when he doesn't like somebody, I'm like, there's a problem.
Yeah, there's something.
But I think the thing that doesn't make the feed is that I am, as active as I am in the world, I'm also fairly lazy. Like there's this whole other part of my life, and I spend a lot of time on my sofa with my dogs, like binge watching television.
Oh my God, me too. Me too. That is my like holy grail, like way to relax.
It's so wonderful.
It
it's
is.
Like a nice like refresh, and you feel like.
What are you watching at the moment?
Department Q.
Okay.
Q.
It's on Netflix. Anyway, it's wild. You have to watch it.
Okay, all right. On the list.
It's like very like detective murder mystery situation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's very, very cool.
You two get along really well.
Yeah, you can tell.
I'm just like,
Well, let's go back to...
You don't watch television?
I do.
Yes,
But
you do.
I've watched, what am I watching now with my partner? We just finished, we go and watch really old movies. It's like we're old souls kind of thing, like The Departed and like just, really old movies. Yeah.
Like classics.
Classics, yeah. So
nice.
that's kind of my thing at the moment.
So your thing is film.
Yeah, film. I love films.
Yeah, you love a movie.
Just, because I feel like my concentration span to a whole TV series is like I just lose focus, and you need to like really understand the very beginning, and for me, I just lose track of that, But
Dude, it's funny. I used to be a film person as well. I think I still am. Like, I mean, it depends on the film, but like, I shared a meme like right before I got here while I was in the Uber. It's like a picture of Oprah, and she's like looking down at like a 2-hour movie, but then she's like giving praise for a 10-hour TV series. And I was like, this is 100% how I feel.
Yeah.
I just don't want the story to end. I'm so excited about the Harry Potter HBO series that's about to come out. Because I'm obsessed with the movies. And now I'm like, oh my God, like a long reliving of my youth.
Yeah. Speaking of your youth.
Yes.
So you were raised in Fiji, live in Australia and work in Australia. What was that like? Like the change up from moving from Fiji
Different
into
cultures,
Australia?
yeah.
Different cultures.
I think I had a unique experience in that regard. So I was born here, and I moved back to Fiji like very early on, like a couple of months old, sort of thing, with my mum, obviously. I was born in the year of the first coup. If anybody doesn't know what that is, a takeover of government and political structures. And so mum had to have me here. My grandparents were here. My, my uncles and aunts were here. Mum had been moving back and forth between Australia and Fiji much of her adult life as well. And she had me sort of late for a woman of her generation. She had me when she was 29. And there was nothing left, when the military takes over, places fall apart. And so she did decide that she was going to go back, because mum's like, she's quite central to my consciousness and my understanding of the world, because she's been a very central figure in terms of the way that it all works. She's an incredible businesswoman, and she's highly successful, and she's had a business for her entire adult life. She started her first business when she was 22, 23.
Wow.
And so, so she had to go back because it was work. But because she also had various relationships with Australia, I came back fairly often. And when I say fairly often, I mean that I was back in Sydney specifically probably once every 3 months, maybe. And then when I went to school, I went to an international school. And so because I went to an international school, and because Fiji is so close to Australia, the primary population outside of locals, outside of Fijians, were Australians and Kiwis. And so my frame of reference for culture was Fijian, but it was also sort of Australian. And then it was also sort of Kiwi, because my mum also did her PhD in New Zealand. So we spent time there as well. So it sort of was like this, like, this tripartite understanding of the way that the world worked culturally. I mean, there were Americans and there were British people as well, but I found the Americans annoying, and not much has changed there. And it just, my frame of reference was sort of that. So when I finally did move back to Australia properly as an adult, or as a young adult at least, I think I was 18, and that was another coup. So we've had, I think, 4 or 5 coups in Fiji since the first one. But I moved back, and that felt sort of natural because I was 17 or 18. I think that maybe I had, weirdly, more of sort of like a cultural awakening when I decided to move back to Fiji when I was 27 or 28. So after 10 years in Australia and sort of like, like having developed a sensibility that was essentially sort of Australian, sort of Fijian, to then have to go back as an adult to live in Fiji, which is, which has its own complexities, that to me, I think, was more jarring.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a really long answer.
No,
I think
that's
it's
great.
we
need
we love such
the
a
backstory.
100%. Especially like for me, like coming from I was born in Colombia and then coming to Sydney, it was just it was extremely difficult for me, and I think obviously it was very different because I I couldn't speak English, and I think for me that was such a hard time for me because I couldn't. I remember just getting bullied every single day going to school, and then had that kind of whole upbringing, throughout my whole. My whole primary school days, I feel like was that. It was a difficult time for me, and it's a difficult time for anyone that makes such a change to come to obviously Australia. So,
but similar story.
Yeah.
You went back to Colombia to live for a year. How was that in terms of
it was
living there?
it was. I think when I did go back to living in Colombia, I actually got homesick from being here in Australia because I saw what a beautiful country and how people really kind of we've got such amazing things here in Australia. When you build like a good friendship, a good support network. I had that at that time because I went back at like 15, 16. So it was very, very different. But it's man. I feel like it's I feel extremely like when people do move to Australia, it's difficult, and
and then I guess like the identity, I guess crisis as well for yourself, like both of you as well. Like you're like, who do I identify with? Who are my people? Do you feel like you can't like connect with people because you're like you. Fiji, Australians, New Zealanders, like all these people that you were going to school with, you're like, okay, where do I fit in? And then you, for example, South American, can't speak English. There's no other kid that can't speak English like me. So who do you identify with? Like, how do you sort of feel like you fit in?
How old were you when you first moved to Australia?
I was 7. Yeah.
So you had a full consciousness by the time you got there.
Exactly. But I was talking to one psychiatrist, and she said your whole sponge, which we call from 0 to 7, was developed from a country where you every day was trying to survive, and every day was extremely difficult to me. And I think I kind of resonated with that because I'm like, to this day, I still continue to survive every single day when I feel like I've achieved so much, but I feel like every single day is a survival for me. I'm trying to prove people wrong because there's so many like things like, it's one of those things. It was a super exciting, like I'll tell you another time about it, but it was like, for me, it was so deep, and it only happened last week that I had this chat with my psychiatrist. And
that's incredible.
It was, it was actually super, super deep.
It's amazing how like, it's all the stuff that you do carry with you. And I was having this conversation with my partner the other day, and much of the way that we relate to the world has to do with those first 7 years of your life. I mean, like I have a friend that who's a behavioral psychologist. He lives in Fiji, and he described it in a really interesting way. So he started the school called the Multiple Intelligence School because he believes in this theory of multiple intelligence, that every single human being like that you can't take all human beings and put them into like a standard education system because each of us has a very particular thing that we're good at, and we can have multiple intelligences, but we'll always have one that's stronger. So like, some people have a great understanding of the body and physicality. Some people have a great understanding of nature. Some people are numbers. Some people are words. Some people are spiritual. Like we all have a thing. But he was saying that those first 7 years are sort of when value systems are put into place. And then he said that like from 7 to 12, as a parent, he was talking about like if people had children, you sort of like, from 7 to 12, you sort of like, it's like a rocket ship. So you kind of like move a human being in a direction. And then at 12, they take off. And then from that point, there's really nothing that you can do as a person outside of the human being.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Because if we take it back and think about our own lives, you think about your first 7 years, and then whatever happened between 7 and 12, if we wanted to unpack and unravel any of the things that cause us distress or whatever as adults now, we would actually have to go all the way back and figure out what it is then that informed this. You think about like people, for example, who face rejection. I think rejection is a thing that like, I mean, it's super, like the thing that you're referring to, I'm just like jumping into it. But like, you know, in a way, if as a young person you face rejection, like if you face like a sense of othering, of difference, of like, you know, I'm not going to accept you because of blah, you do tend to live with that all your life. And I don't think that we ever really get past it. I think you just start to live around it and you figure out coping mechanisms to live around this idea of rejection, as opposed to ever being like, oh no, I'm fully okay now, because you keep coming up against something else. And that I get it, like that whole thing about striving, like you got to prove people wrong. Yeah, it's very, very real.
It is. Yeah, I came out of that, but it's just given me a much more deeper insight into it. Also, I think I'm, you know, like hearing that has made me realize, oh, this is the reason I do this, and this is the reason why I do things, you know. But
I think that's the most important thing. Like, if you want to fully understand yourself and to understand your values and why you live the way that you live, is understanding why. And understanding why is like going back and looking at your history and actually uncovering those things and touching on those things, because it's important to know who you are and to identify yourself.
Tell us with the Down Syndrome ambassador. I want to know more about that. Like, you know, I feel like, you know, that's such a key thing as well for me. Like, because you're a Down Syndrome ambassador. Yeah, tell us about that. Yeah, like for me, it's something that I've always kind of wanted. I wanted to work, like, you know, with my training and what I do. I always wanted to kind of be and adapt myself and train, obviously, you know, disability kids, and something that I've always wanted to do. And, you know, you're an ambassador, which is a massive thing. How did you get into that?
That's incredible, and we should 100% talk about it, because it'd be wonderful.
Yes,
They reached out. They were putting together an ambassador program. I had at the time just come off reality television, and so Jess from Down Syndrome New South Wales was like, "Oh, we're looking for people like across sectors who can like touch on various points or whatever." And she was like, "It seems like we could work with you. It seems like it might be really interesting to have you on board." And I said to her, which is the interesting thing, I was like, I don't actually have anybody in my life who has Down syndrome. And I was like, how can I be useful? And then she was like, that's not a problem for us as an organization. You go away and think about it. So I did. I went away and I thought about it. And there were various people that I spoke to who were like, oh, well, it doesn't make sense. And because the people that I was speaking to at the time were trying to sort of like create identity, career, whatever for me within the Australian market. And sometimes that's the worst thing you can do, is listen to people like that. Because they're not looking at your sentiment or your feelings or your connection to an idea. Because I felt really connected to this idea. And coming back to that, like the thought of difference, like I've always felt a bit different. And when I went away, despite the fact that I had professionals who were like, it's not like, you know, it doesn't make sense, whatever. I was like, but what does it mean to be a person who has a disability? Like, what does it mean to be you know, and this is parallel, they're not the same thing, but what does it mean to be a person of color? Or what does it mean to be a queer person? Or what does it mean to be a migrant? Or what does it mean to be bald? I don't know. You know, what does it mean to be fat or thin or whatever? Like, what do any of these things mean? Essentially, we're all like deviations from this like central idea of what it means to be like the perfect human being. And there's no such thing as the perfect human being. We live in a culture that tells us that we should be aiming to achieve perfection, when we should really be like aiming to achieve a sense of wellness and wholeness and happiness for as long as we exist. And then I was like, well, maybe I don't know, but this is an opportunity for me to know, to become a part of a community, to know who these people are, to understand what it means to live like that. And also for me to share with people within the community what it means to live like someone like me in the world. And that was, and it's honestly been like one of the most wonderful things that I've done with my life. It's the Down syndrome community is absolutely incredible. Like you have the most talented, interesting, smart, funny, honest, very honest bunch of people that you've ever met in your entire life. You have people from the community who have been Archibald finalists. You have people who've run marathons. I mean, I couldn't think of anything fucking worse than running a marathon.
Yeah, me too.
People, that's terrible. I hate to run. Human beings are not designed to run. That's a whole other thing. And then you've got people who are gymnasts. This one particular member of the community, Ellen, she's Ellen Mayer. She's absolutely incredible. I interviewed her for this publication we put together for the organization. She's a gymnast. And then actors and they've started production companies. Once you start to get to know people who aren't like you, it makes your world richer. So my world is richer because I get to be an ambassador for people who very often are overlooked and ignored. But I get way more out of it than they do. And I know that's typical thing to say, but it's genuinely 100% the truth. And if, I don't know, I can't imagine not doing that.
So what does that involve? Just obviously bringing awareness, but then do you also, go to things like events or hosting, or what do you do for it?
All of it. So I do host for them. So I host their because one of the things I do is that I MC. So I do actually host events, and I host events for them. So the Up Club, the once a year family fun day. I've done cooking demonstrations with them. We have worked on these. Well, the thing that I'm most proud of is that I worked on these books with them, these little booklets. So I interviewed parents and their children about what if their children were old enough to have that conversation, and if not, then it's just parents. But to create guides for new parents. So often when somebody is told, because now you can find out before through a harmony test, obviously, if you're pregnant. So instead of having a medical professional be the only person to sort of be like, well, this is the case. And very often what medical professionals say still is, I'm sorry, which is something that Down Syndrome New South Wales is working on, because it shouldn't be the first thing that a parent hears regardless. But now we put a booklet in their hands. And so their stories, actual documented proper stories of mums and dads and their very honest journey from finding out that they're going to have a child with Down syndrome, or if people are older, when their child was born, their honest reaction to that, because obviously there's fear and there's concern and there's, not just for yourself, but also for your child. But then the way that sentiment changes over time, discovering that your child is just another human being who is a wonderful addition to the world. So there's a lot involved now that I think about. But yeah, it's a lot. And more recently, I think our most recent project that we're working on is that we are working on an online cooking resource, because when people with Down syndrome are young, cooking with your children is one of the most effective ways to bond and most effective ways to teach skills, motor skills and just functional skills about how to exist in the world. So we're working on that at the moment.
That's beautiful. Incredible work.
Thank you. The organization does wonderful work. They really deserve props for what they do. They're really cool.
We need more people like you,
for sure.
It's awesome, Fuzz, man.
Yeah. Well, that's, obviously making a community feel included and, bringing inclusion to the forefront. What is one, I guess, negative thing that people don't talk about inclusion? that should be spoken about?
I think the most harmful, well, I'll sort of go there. The most harmful thing is when people don't realize that they're being exclusionary, or like when somebody who has experienced exclusion becomes the person to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And we see that all the time, right? I'm sure that, like, you both would have seen that in various ways, as a woman, as a person of color, as a migrant, as whatever, like, all the various things. Sometimes when people walk through the door, they close the door behind them. And I don't mean that necessarily just when it comes to work, and I don't mean that necessarily professionally. I just mean like just as, experiencing the world. I think I think we need to talk about that more, because I think that we are responsible for each other, particularly as people who have experienced a lack of inclusion. And yeah, we have to be aware of that. And we also have to be allies for each other. That's the second thing maybe that, like, I think we don't talk about enough, is that just because you've got your lane of exclusion, it doesn't mean that you have to be dismissive of other people's experiences.
Do you think that is because, people see or feel like, I've worked so hard to get through this door that, people need to experience what I experienced in order to come through this door as well?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, like, it's this mentality of lack, of this idea that we'll never have enough. I remember my cousin saying to me a couple of years ago, and he's quite clever or whatever sometimes, but he was talking about this idea of like a pie, and he was like, and he was talking about it specifically in the context of his work and what he did. But he was like, all of us fight for like a slice of this pie. And like, and we think that like if we share a bit of our pie, we'll have a smaller bit of pie. But what if we just made a bigger pie, and then we could all participate, and we could all equally and equitably have a participation enjoying this pie? And I was like, 100% we can bake a bigger fucking pie. Like, I mean, like, it doesn't, it's, it's really simple. Like, we don't need to, there's a lot in the world. As I think that we've been trained to believe that there's not very much out there, but there's a lot in the world. And there are people in the world who don't feel that. And I'll say something controversial because it's like, whatever, but like, but I've thought about it a lot. So imagine being a white, middle-class, heterosexual male. If you wake up in the morning in Australia, you open your eyes and your feet hit the ground and you have no consciousness of your identity. You don't think about the fact that I'm a migrant, or that I had I'm not saying that they don't have problems, but what I'm saying is broadly, you don't think that, oh, I'm a woman and I have these various concerns about my safety. You don't think I'm a black person, I'm a brown person, and that's the first thing that people are going to see when I walk through a door. You don't think about like the way that you have to temper your tone in spaces because you're a queer person. Like, and very often, those strange, but very often people like that, they can walk through the world with ease, and it's not anything that they have done as individuals. I have many wonderful white male heterosexual friends, and they're wonderful, wonderful people. It's not about the individual, but it's about the systems that have been created to facilitate the progress of a particular group of people. And I think that like we can all participate in the way that historically privileged group participates in the world. But we just have to be allies for each other. We have to be conscious of each other. And then we just have to just like, walk through the world and like try and make it happen.
Yeah, no, I love that message. That's so true.
Yeah, I feel like, have you ever, I guess, come across anyone that wasn't, I don't know, like maybe slid in the DMs and like started being negative? Obviously, you're a massive ally, and I know social media people just write whatever. Do you receive much of that? Or,
yeah.
Yeah, can you just, just tell me, like, like what would people...
You know what people go for, which I find like the most like ridiculous in the entire world. People always go for homophobia, and I'm like, and I honestly am just like oh my God, if you don't want to be gay, then don't have gay sex. Like it's fine. Like you'll be like, go and live your life, like whatever. I was like, it's so confusing to me. I'm just like, I mean, even the other day, like I put something out, and then because my partner and I, he doesn't like all the stuff, but like he's in a lot of the content as well, and you know, we do pretty much everything together. And he's absolutely wonderful, my favorite human being in the world. But we're like, you know, we're in a video together, and it's sometimes not even DMs. Like it's like, you know, it's in public. Somebody will come on and be like, you know, repent now and give. And I'm just like, oh my god, you just all just fuck off. Like, so it's just like, you know, sometimes you're like, oh my god, like, do you really have the time to be doing this? And again, the thing that we should talk about more, sadly, a lot of the time, it's people from what we can broadly refer to as community, right? Like it's people who experience at least some level of discrimination or exclusion or othering or whatever, and you're like, hello. Like, we're not the same, but we're on the same side.
Yeah,
like, you
exactly.
know, and we can, let's have a conversation instead. But yeah, there's that. I mean, I think that for whatever reason is a thing that always comes up. And I think it makes people uncomfortable if you can just be like, I exist in the world.
Yeah. Just being yourself and actually just putting yourself out there. I think that does make people very uncomfortable. And I think people look to that and be like, I wish I could do that myself, rather than dulling myself down or being something they're not, just to be included in maybe a group they think they want to be a part of, right? Speaking of, you mentioned pie. I love pie. And that was I just pictured a hot pie in my mind when you said that. I was like, oh, damn, can we have a bigger pie? Yes.
Do you know what I love? This is really random. But like, you know the party pies that you buy?
My God, yes.
Oh my God, they're so good.
Do you go for a sausage roll as well?
Oh my God, yes.
Yes.
But like,
So
I don't
good.
like all the fancy ones. Like, you know, I don't like because I like all the bakeries, they do all the things now with the different sausage, and I'm just like, just make a fucking sausage roll.
Yeah,
like, just, you know,
like the
ordinary,
pork and fennel and all of those things. You're like, just a plain meat.
Just a meat sausage roll.
Yeah. So let's go into your cooking, because that's obviously very apparent on your social media. You're a great cook. Speak about, you know, what that does for you.
I think at the heart of it, at the heart of everything, if I'm asked what I do, I tell people that I'm a storyteller. So, you know, I write, I've presented television. My partner and I have been fashion designers. We still do textile design even now. And we have a business online for that. But I think that food is sort of the natural progression of life at the moment. And I didn't realize that was going to be a thing, because I'd always cooked for everybody. It was like a whole thing. Like, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's, you know, watching my grandparents or something, or like, you know, coming from I'm an only child, but my mom, as I said before, you know, there's 13 of them. So I've got like 5 billion cousins, and, you know, like having like big family gatherings and having lots of food around or whatever. Like, food is such a wonderful way to bring people together. There's something also, I think, that I've discovered about food that creates a common understanding between human beings. Like, you could like make something. Okay, I'll rewind it a bit. So like, when Eli and I were very, very young, so when we were 24, I had my first business here in Sydney. It was a bar on the edge of the Cross called Awkward.
Oh, wow.
It was
cool.
a long time ago. It was before the lockouts.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so that happened. But, you know, and it was always busy or whatever. But like, one of the rules around having those sorts of liquor licenses at the time was that you had to have a fully operational kitchen. So it's a lot easier now, I think, because there's a very important attempt to bring nightlife back to Sydney. But so we had a kitchen that was fully operational, and our chefs were Brazilian, Luisa and Guy. And Luisa went on to becoming like the like the menu developer at Guzmini Gomez or whatever. Like, she did incredibly well.
Yeah.
They opened this wonderful bar in Bondi called Bar Copo, which is like super successful, and they've taken a break from that because it's a redevelopment or whatever. But when they were in our kitchen and they were making food, and I think that maybe that's what planted the seed, which is now becoming whatever it's becoming. The ingredients that we use, despite the fact that we are literally oceans apart, were essentially the same.
Mm.
The flavors, very similar. Pacific food and South American food is like, you would be surprised at how similar it is, just because of the type, just because of the ingredients that we use, because of the freshness of things that we use or whatever. Even now when I put up videos, like, it's always the South Americans coming into the messages being like, we make that as well, and this is what it's called, where we come from, and blah blah blah. And I think that, you know, it's a complete revelation to the world, and it's not. But in expressing my identity online, because I feel like the Pacific story in Australia is not told at all. I'm not sure why that is. I mean, like, we're literally like, you know, we're right there.
Yeah.
But we've always sort of been like the, you know, the poor neighbors in the corner. And we've been coming to this country, we've been existing in this country for a very, very long time. The end of, I mean, you can look this up, it's fascinating, but the end of the White Australia policy was hastened because of an issue of an adoption of an Indo-Fijian child. And so, so the Pacific has a very, very strong history. I mean, beyond that, you know, Solomon Islanders were brought here to work sugarcane fields. You know, they used to call them blackbirds. Now they call them South Sea Islanders. So all of this history, and yet, like, nobody talks about Pacific people. You know, I mean, beyond like people being like, oh, you know, we're, you know, bouncers and rugby players. That's all, you know, that's the only story. But there's a bigger story there. You know, there's more to be said. Like, we exist. We're not just like happy people who live on islands, like, you know, spread across thousands of kilometers in the Pacific. Like, we're actual people with experiences. Food seems to be the way I have found that is most effective in this context to tell that story. Because in the way that I connected with my then Brazilian chef and now friend, in understanding like that we're similar, even though you grew up in Sao Paulo and I grew up in Suva, like, I can do that now with other Australians as well. And again, it's about like bringing our community back together, right? So I think that that's the food story and journey at the moment, because it's my most recent tool to tell stories. And it's a lot of fun. I got to eat anyway, so, you know.
Yeah, might as well cook a feast up. But no, that's very true. Like, I feel like when we travel, you experience the country, or you experience the culture of the place that you're going to through the food, right? 100%. Like, mainly, I think that for me 100%. Is like the main thing that I experience, the culture, and I always make a conscious effort to you know, always experience the traditional foods of where I'm going, because it does tell a story.
It does. I think my as sort of an aside and as a whatever, but like my ancestors arrived in Fiji 150 years ago, whatever, most of them, as slaves or indentured laborers from India. And we're now many generations in. But the particular food, so Indo-Fijian food, is informed by the fact that these people had a slave or slave-like experience, in that there was a lack of access to things. So there naturally had to be a reimagining of flavor in a different context. So Indo-Fijian food tends to be, like, you know, broadly speaking, like maybe drier, or has much drier spices. There's no cream because cream spoils, you know. There's the inclusion of more potentially coconut products, depending on like where you are. So, and that's become a part of the language of the Fijian, you know, just generally that sort of lexicon of food in Fiji. You know, any Fijian feast that you go to has a lava, which is like an underground oven cooked thing. So, and it has a curry, it has a chop suey, because these are the three primary ethnic groups of the islands. But like each of those cuisines and the way that they've evolved over time, it's happened because of a very particular history. It's happened because of colonization. It's happened because of transportation of human beings. It was literally human trafficking. It's happened because of waves of people trying to find this, you know, something new in a different place. And these are common experiences, right? I mean, I could say that about Fiji because what I'm familiar with, but you could say the same thing about Colombia. Or you could say the same thing about Australia.
Yeah.
You know, wherever you go in the world, you find those same stories. And I think that food carries your history. And that's why you're right. Like, if you go and you eat something somewhere, and if you ask a question about it, we often find that it's come from some sort of travel route that we don't quite understand. And if you trace it back far enough, you'll be like, oh, we're all just the fucking same, aren't we?
Yeah. We all come from the same place.
It's
No,
true.
we all come from the same place.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true.
Well, food is
yeah.
obviously very passionate. It holds a very deep meaning in my heart because I love food. I love food very much. But Jono, you love fitness.
I do, yeah.
And you know,
Do you love food as well?
I love both. I don't know why you're saying I don't like food.
No, I'm just saying. I think I'm more the food side. You're
You
the
reckon?
fitness side. Well, yeah.
I think I'm out more than you do. But
But you've done a huge weight loss journey as well. And you filmed that, right, over the 12 months. How was that? What do you feel like stuck? What did you not enjoy? What did you enjoy about it?
You know the thing, so like, do you both feel this, like, as you get older and things change and like whatever, and so like you keep having to like reimagine how to like be well in the world, do you know what I mean? So like anyway, before I moved back to Fiji the second time as a young adult at 27, I was very like healthy. So like but again, you know, I was in my 20s or whatever, and I was running the bar. I didn't drink a drop of alcohol because I was concerned about running the bar and becoming an alcoholic. And so I just didn't. So, you know, I would wake up in the mornings and I would like, you know, run 5 kilometers every morning. I'd strength train at that time 5 times a week, I think. So when I went back to Fiji, I was healthy. And then something about like the burnout of doing that, because of course, I mean, those days when there were no lockouts, we would operate the bar from like 8 a.m. to 3 or 4 a.m. Almost every single day. And so it was always an in and out. So even if you weren't there, you were conscious of it. And just being tired and going home, it just stopped, you know, and it's hot. I mean, if you ever go to the Pacific, it's fucking hot. Like, and the humidity kills you. And like, you know, I mean, to go out for a run in Suva is like, you might as well try to drown yourself. You know, like, I mean, it's just like, you sweat. I mean, like everyone hates the sweat, but like you just get used to being just constantly moist.
Yeah.
Like your entire body is just covered in humidity, which is wonderful for the skin, which is why I still
You've got great skin, by the way.
Thank you so much. I
Looking
appreciate
at it
that.
glow in the light.
Thank you. It was the humidity.
Yeah.
And so I put on 50 kilos. Wow. And it was a lot, like, you know, but you don't know that it's happening when it's happening.
Of course.
And, you know, unfortunately, as everybody's aware, and I'm sure that my Pacifica brothers and sisters won't mind me saying this, but we have a problem with obesity in the Pacific. And often when the lists come up internationally, Pacifica countries tend to top those lists when it comes to being overweight or obese. And I think that, you know, it's multiple things. Again, it's colonization, it's food, it's blah, blah, blah. I mean, like the amount of processed food. You talk about pies and sausage rolls. I mean, that's all you fucking eat when you're there. But like, you know, and you think we have access to all this like wonderful fresh food, and you could, but it's not convenient. So if you, like, you know how when you go to the supermarket here, you can just like, you know, buy a packet of whatever, and it's like pre-packed, like, I know, zucchini noodles. I hate those, but like, you know, something like that. Like, but it's all
salads and stuff.
like salads and things, right? So it's easy. And it's impossible in the developing world. You know, you have to make an effort to do that, and they just don't. And so there's a lot of white flour, and there's a lot of processed carbohydrates. There's sometimes very little protein. And so, you know, you just put on weight. And I think that, you know, living the particular lives we lived, you just put on a lot of weight. And so at the end of our time there, which was during COVID, Eli and I had a fashion brand, which was successful, was doing really well. When COVID happened, we had to pivot the business to make just face masks, because we were stocked in the resorts, and we had a flagship store in the capital, and that was all wonderful. But, you know, once we had community transmission, an outbreak or whatever, the lockdowns were really severe. And so we had to do something else to keep everybody employed. So we had an atelier or a small factory. We brought all the stuff into the factory and we started making face masks. And so when we were doing that, we sort of, it was a funny thing, because whatever anyone believes in, God, the universe, whatever you want to say, is that force, has this sort of way of telling you when, like, this expression, like the well is running dry, and you can't keep going back and like trying to, you know, like bring up buckets of water when there's nothing left at the bottom of it. And I just remember like with this gigantic cutting table in the middle of the atelier, and it was, all these rolls of fabric, which we're also very proud of because they were so beautiful, and it was all like silk linen, and we very, it just seemed like it was so important to us, this idea of fabric. But then we started to cut them up into these tiny things that people were putting across their face. And then, and I just saw the roll, and we had, it was good. We kept the staff employed. The business kept running, which was wonderful. But I saw these fabric rolls sort of just like finish. And then as they were finishing, I've like leapt into another story now. But then like as they're finishing, Eli said to me actually, because I think we're down to like our last 2 rolls, and we always had so much fabric in that place. And he was like, I think it might be time for us to go back. And I was like, yeah, actually. And it was part of the conversation where I was like, we've become so desensitized to so many things living here, in that like we're super unhealthy. We're not looking after ourselves at all. We're doing this, and this is wonderful. But we really are like, if you're dropping a bucket down the bottom of a well, we really are scraping the bottom of this well now.
Yeah.
And then he was like, I think you should, because I could come back, of course, because I'm Australian. Eli was not. He was he didn't have a residency either at the time. Now it's different. And he was like, you should just go back, just repatriate. So I booked a repatriation flight and I came back.
Yeah.
And I think that, funnily, one of the first things that I decided when I came back, as soon as I got here, got out of hotel quarantine, and I was walking from quarantine to our apartment at the time, I was like, I really need to get well. So it was just it was just a weird sort of realization. But the whole time that I lived there, I had no idea. Like, it just didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
The story.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Everyone's got such a positive story towards health and wellness.
Yeah.
And obviously for yourself, you've got a big story as well, and you've lost a good amount of weight, and I think your realization was probably similar. You didn't feel your best, and you didn't feel that you were the same person.
Yeah. Well, I know, when you don't feel yourself when you're carrying weight, so to speak. It's like weighing down on you, and I feel like that was weighing down on my everything that I was doing, my confidence, myself, and just the way that I would genuinely be me. But yeah, with your health journey, what do you feel like you did that you loved and that really got you through?
I think the challenge of it, I don't know, I like to win. So I think that that was a big part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, practically, I really enjoy strength training. I fucking hate cardio.
Oh, me too.
Can't stand it. It's such a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
But the thing is that but it was also like rediscovering. I don't know if that was the same in your, but you sort of, you rediscover your body and what it is that your body can do, and what the functionality of your body, and I don't know, it's a wonderful, for me at this point, I've lost 37 kilos now.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's
thank
massive.
you. No, it's been really, really good.
Yeah.
And everything feels, your knees feel better. Your whole body feels better when that happens. It's harder now because once you now I'm like lucky if it's like 100 grams, but it's fine. I mean, it's getting there. It's getting there, whatever. It's just patience now. It's a lot of patience. But I think I lost my train of thought.
That's all right.
Yeah, no, that's good.
But,
well,
I guess,
we'll go into something that we do
always.
every week, every episode. It is called High Low Castano.
Mm-hmm.
So give us your high of the week, your low of the week, and something completely random, which is your Castano moment. You can start wherever you like.
Wherever,
well.
high, low, yeah.
Interesting. High of the week. Where's the high of the week? God. You know, I can never remember what's happened yesterday.
Being alive.
Me too.
I
I can't
just
remember
forget.
what this morning was.
It's so
How did I get
bad.
here?
How did you
So bad.
transport?
I'll give you I'll give you a work high and a
Yeah.
personal high because
Yeah.
whatever. But like
Perfect.
a work high is so Eli and I have developed a new food business. First time that we're doing a food business, which is really cool. Called Fiji Pantry. And we are now in the final process of setting up our Amazon store. So
Amazing.
That's been major. So
That's
they'll be
cool.
fulfilling for us, which is really cool. The other high of the week is that my dog Zuko, who I'm obsessed with, he's reactive. So he was a rescue. So he's not very good with other dogs. And so I've been trying to train him to go for walks without trying to like rip the throat off another dog. And this week, you know, we almost got to walking by another dog and he didn't try to kill it. I mean, he did in the end, but like we got really, really close before we tried to kill them, which was really wonderful.
Yeah.
A low of the week, I can't really tell you a low of the week.
It's always hard to understand
It
a low of the
is,
week, which
yeah.
I think is it's a lot of growth when you can identify a low for me
Yeah,
personally.
for sure.
Yeah. I wonder what a low of the week is. I don't know.
Maybe not going on that run.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know what it is?
What is it?
The low of the week, which is the low of my life at the moment, is that I have to live in these shoes.
Oh, yeah, the hot case.
Okay.
Because
I saw
Yeah.
those.
I have a foot injury,
Oh.
and so I
thought you were about
can't.
to say foot fetish. I was like, where's this going? I thought that's what you're about to say.
I've told like multiple people to get on Foot Finder. I haven't done it myself, but like it's a wonderful thing to do if anybody's looking to make extra money. No, I've injured my feet, so like it's that's what it is. It's because I kept wearing shoes like that, and my feet are like these fat Fijian feet, which like have broken, and now I've like broken the nerves in my feet. So I have to wear these around and look like an old
Is
man.
that
But that's
a forever thing or?
It I have to go to this I have to go to a lovely a friend of mine has a wonderful beautiful opening this evening, and I was like, oh my god, if I can't put on my Pradas, I will just kill myself. And show up in Hockers or whatever. And the last is the Castano of the week.
Yeah,
so like
something random,
funny.
something interesting that's happened to you. Could have been the smallest thing, biggest thing, whatever.
Oh, but actually, this is just gossip.
Okay.
Because I love gossip.
We love tea, don't we?
Oh my god, I can't even tell you. And every time it comes in hard, I'm like, oh my god. So anyway, so we I discovered this person is a psycho.
Ooh.
Anyway, that's all I can say. But that was like my favorite thing this week because I don't get enough of this drama.
Yeah.
And it's got nothing to do with me.
And how did you figure out that they were a psycho?
So
Chat GP? I don't know, that's how I type it.
A friend told a friend that a friend showed a friend messages that they had sent them. And then that friend told me. And in my own personal analysis, I was like, he's a fucking psycho.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's like my favorite thing. That
I love that.
Sounds good.
It does. Well, we've also given you the opportunity to ask us a question towards the end of this podcast to wrap it up. Any questions that come to mind that you want to ask myself, Jono, or ask collectively?
Well, I'll ask you because like towards the end of our chat, and I'll come back to you, but like you said, or you mentioned that you'd also been through a journey of weight loss or health or wellness or whatever. What was the impetus for you to do that, and how do you feel now? Like, do you feel different from the person that you were when you started the journey?
So my catalyst was, I guess, at the end of our marriage. And that wasn't going too well, clearly.
What are you trying to say? I deliberately put weight on you.
You made me look like this. No, but it was like, sometimes people can wake up and feel like, okay, I need to make a change. But sometimes people need that push or that catastrophic event to be like, you need to make a change or else, things are going to stay the same. And I think for me, it was a longer journey. In the past, for me, I always did crash diets, whatever fad was in, I would try it. Like any, one of those fat melting machines, any treatment, I have tried it. Like if you want to know about treatments, I can tell you about treatments. They don't work. You need to actually put in the hard yards. And I think what started me off was going on a deep journey into who I am, what I live for, what are my values, and really just, I feel like towards the end of our marriage, I became a recluse. Like I wasn't going out much. I was literally, and look, COVID sort of helped that as well. But I really loved that. I was like, oh my God, lockdown, I'm staying in. I don't care anyway. But yeah, I think it was just like taking a deep dive into me and mentally, like not fixing myself, but understanding what was going on and what was missing and what I really wanted to align myself with. And then that, getting my mental side, I guess, fixed and better, was me making the decision to then, look after me physically. And it was more of like I'd say 2 to 3 year process of doing that. It wasn't, anything quick or anything that, I was like, okay, I'm going to do a 12-week transformation or 6 weeks and I'm going to get, healthy and fit or whatever. It was a long period of time. It was 24 kilos that I lost. So yeah, I think, the catalyst was me just feeling like there was something missing. But then the knock-on effect was that I was going to make the change for myself mentally, but also physically.
So much of it is psychological and it's emotional.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
No,
There's a
thank
lot.
you.
It's really
Yeah.
incredible.
And you do own a gym as well. Cool.
That too. I mean, that
Just
helps.
letting you know, but
That
all
does
good,
help.
all good.
That definitely does
That's
help.
what I would have said. I own a gym, so yeah, of course I got to be fit.
Got to look the part.
A question for you, speaking of owning the
tell
gym.
me.
Because I think I saw your story yesterday, the day before, whatever it was, on your socials, and you took a picture of the spot in the park, and then you said that was the moment where you decided that. And then, like earlier in the chat, you said that you sort of like you've got that you have that drive because you feel like you always have to prove something.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you'll ever get to a point where you don't want to prove anything, but that you?
I think there will be a point when I will get to that. I think at the moment now it's just that inner child in me trying to seek acceptance, and I think the only way that I'm ever going to get there is by actually me being proud enough of the person that little boy was, no matter what he had or whatever he was looking for. I think once I can reach that point there, that's when I'll stop caring about trying to always. Because I feel like my growing up days was always, I was never good enough for my parents, never good enough for my dad. My dad said, I'm a failure, and every single time, and I'd have a poor game in soccer, it'd be like, you're shit. You should stop playing now. And that was like his words that he'd say to me every time. So it's that little boy in me being like, you know what, it doesn't matter what your dad or what people, they're saying about you, you're good enough. You're good enough. So I feel like once I can get to that point, and I'm slowly, by even hearing my, that conversation I had last week and understanding that's helping me be a lot better these days. And, I'm improving. I've shown my growth in myself, and I'm heading the right way. And like, I feel like, next year's finishing off this year, I'm going to be so much better than I was last year, because I was a wreck last year, but to answer that question for you.
That's incredible.
Thanks, man. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for coming
such
on
a great
No
story.
Business Being a Castano. We loved having you.
It was heaven to be here. Thank you.
No, thank you. And thanks for giving your time.
I think of heaven. I'm like, I was trying to think of heaven, what it looks like. My mind was trying to think when you said it. I just lost chain of thought. But thanks, Haz. Thank you, thanks, man. And we'll catch up at the gym soon. I hope, mate. Come into Acero.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
I bring Eli mostly because it's again, competition is good.
Yeah, for sure. Healthy competition.
We get there.
Thank you.